Hey, welcome everybody. I'm Deacon Jeff Majewski, and as promised, finally, going to talk about the MCI website.
Hey,
Just going to go through this. I mean, this has been around since I think about 2005, and that's actually I was there at the beginning because people said, we've got this music from the cantor classes in Pittsburgh. Where can we put it? And it just started out as something small that kind of grew. Um, the basic layout hasn't changed in quite a while. So at the top, there's a link here to the Archeparchy website. And wherever you are, all of this top banner is always the same. This always takes you here. There is a hierarchical map of supposedly everything on the website, but it's hasn't been updated in a couple of years, and I really need to do this and redo this. There is a link to the blog, which occasionally has talks and things, and we're hoping to do more with that this year. And then one of the important things that people don't know about, a lot of people know that on the right-hand side, as we'll see in a minute, there is a liturgical calendar that's usually, as I'll say later, for the current month or two. But in addition, at the top, there is always a pointer to the current liturgical calendar for the entire year. Now, in the past, I usually tried to have music for each month done by the middle of the preceding month. But at this point, almost all the music is done through the end of 2025. So what's on this page? Well, first thing is there's a link at the top to the 12 monthly Manea. The Manean is just a liturgical book with the text of a particular month, January, February, and so on. And in particular, the MCI some years ago did a Manean for the Divine Liturgy. So we'll look at, since it's February, let's look at February. And this is just a PDF that has, starting with February 1st, the Troparion, the Kontakion, the Perkimenon and Alleluia, and communion hymn for each day of the year of the fixed ones. And if there's more than one saint, it'll have a biography of each saint and then the hymns. And this is very much a pick and choose. You use the typicon. You don't expect, particularly if there are multiple saints, to use all of them. But if, for example, your church is dedicated to Saint Tryphon, or I don't know, say, what's another one here? You have someone named Simeon and you want to celebrate the feast for their name day, then you've got all of that here. There's one PDF for each month of the year. I note that we had a question about, how to identify the important stuff, and we started marking all the Sundays and great feasts in boldface. So starting with January 1st, we have for each day the date, the day of the week this year. If it's a new week, the tone and the Sunday Matins Gospel. And then under the description, we have a link for the music for Vespers, a link to a psalmolazan or simpler version of the Vespers music if this uses special melodies. And then the Divine Liturgy, sometimes other things like a Moleben to St. Basil on St. Basil's Day. All of this stuff is here. It's not completely complete, but it's as complete as I can readily make it in terms of the stuff that the MCI does. And that's good from the beginning of the year to the end. Now, one thing that people ask about is where you get the printed booklets. Um, this music is all set up. Almost everything the MCI does is set up on on a 7 by 8.5 inch page, which means that you can put two of them side by side on a sheet of legal paper, which means that you can print them off in a booklet on legal size paper. Now, if you just pick the Divine Liturgy, or say, let's pick Vespers, there's that 7 and 8.5 inch page. Up in the URL bar of the browser, it's got the exact URL, which you could, you know, clip, and send to somebody else. But if you go in here and right before PDF, you put an underscore booklet, and hit enter, you will find the booklet. And you can print it off and fold it, and you've got that done. Now, I do, as I'll say later, I do send out these out links out monthly to the booklets, but almost anything on the website, if you find the PDF, such as like the Divine Liturgy Manet I talked about earlier, then you can get a booklet for it by just adding underscore booklet. So that's the liturgical calendar. Oh, and at the bottom, there are links to all the previous years. So if you want to go around and look at, oh, wait a second, next year, Easter falls on a certain date. Can I find something similar? You can find all of that. Mostly that's for wonks like me. I mean, it's not, but it's there if you need it. After the liturgical calendar, we have a page about classes.
Hello.
Hello? Oh, sorry. And so this describes the MCI online classes, the free classes for everybody, the basic cantor course, intermediate, and advanced. And I've got links to registration forms here if you need them, information how to take the course, and so on.
I don't know anything other than that. Excuse me.
And next is publications.
Father Deacon,
Yes.
I'm sorry, a couple of my people just were able to log on. Can you just show them where on the upper banner that is this
All right.
that you're talking about?
Sure. For those who have just joined, we're looking at the Cantor Institute website. So far, we're just getting started. I've talked about a site map and the blog. And here at the very top, if you select liturgical calendar, you find the calendar for the entire year with links to music.
Okay.
So again, from the main page, the next thing, and that banner is on every page, we have a page describing all the MCI classes. And these actually have links. If you have created a login, you can go directly to the class. And then, okay, here we are, publications. These are all of not just the books that the MCI has done, but for example, we have a PDF of the Green Book, the Divine Liturgies book, the Cantor's Companion, references to the 7 CD set of recordings, the Divine Liturgy of the Pre-Sanctified Gifts. Unfortunately, that is not available to me in a PDF because it was originally kind of done as a cut and paste book. And I think that if you did a PDF, it would be over 150 megabytes. It's not, and I don't have it in any case. But I should also point out that on each of these is a little bit worth reading. So for example, for the Divine Liturgies book, it mentions here's the PDF, here's a link to the seminary press where you can get a copy, and here is a link to an errata page with all of the problems that we know about that you might want to go in and pencil in, something that happened here. So, if you said, I think this is wrong, I'd love to hear from you, but first go check the errata page and see if it's already a known thing. So we have that. We have an errata page for the pre-sanctified gifts. After that, we're still not up to the MCI books, but we have things that have been contributed by various cantors for use with those official books. So for example, we have a table of contents that you can print off and stick in your green book that is much, much more detailed than the one that is in the green book itself. And if I remember correctly, this is 4 pages long. It's in that same 7 by 8.5 inch, half of a legal sheet size, which means that if we go up here in the top and right before PDF, put underscore booklet, I hope this works, live demos and all. There we go. So you can, now this is 2 pages, which you could print off front and back on a legal size sheet of paper and fold it, and stick it in your green book. So what are some other contributed materials? We have a reference chart for Pascha and Bright Week, a little supplement for the hierarchical divine liturgy with all of the music for it, an article with melodies for singing psalm verses at Holy Communion, and along with that, which we teach in our class, so these are if you want a melody that matches up the cherubic hymn A and communion hymn A, here's a melody for the psalm verses. We also have a booklet that has all of the psalms that we use at communion arranged for singing to those melodies. Let's see, two different versions of the Divine Liturgy in Church Slavonic, an SATB harmonization. Oh, I missed it somewhere. Do. There should be. Here we go. There is on the website, and it's not perfect, but it's there, a four-part harmonization of the entire set of responses and hymns for the ordinary parts of the Divine Liturgy of St. John Chrysostom. And love if it's something that we want to revisit and see if we can improve, because it doesn't exactly match the way we normally harmonize in church. It was done by someone who's used to writing harmonizations. Um, but it's worthwhile. It's worth looking at. And that, I believe, that is one of the few things that's printed on 8.5 by 11-inch paper. And that's something that in the future, when we do harmonized full scores, we'll probably stick to letter size paper just because it gives you a lot more room. We have a harmonization of the pre-sanctified, a men's voices harmonizations of pre-sanctified, and that is all of the contributed materials. So official stuff, contributed stuff. And then we get to our Vespers book, the daily Vespers book, Compline, Great Compline during Lent or on Christmas and Theophany, Small Compline, Matins. The Matins book was originally came out in 2004 and revised in 2006. It's called Volume 1, Sundays after Pentecost. We never did a Volume 2 or Volume 3. Instead, we just put out a supplement for Lent and then did booklets with the extra stuff for Pascha. There's a book of the Hours and Typica. Now, this is without music, and it's printed on half of a letter size paper. So if I go here and add booklet, and yeah, I'm going to ring that change over and over so that you know about it. This is for printing on letter size paper, front and back as a booklet. So if you want the Hours and Typica just to pray, I am working on a music supplement because, for example, each of the hours has a Theotokion, which may be sung in any of the 8 different tones. So there's a bunch of music that I'm working on for that, but it's not ready yet. The Cantor Verses book, which is fairly important. That's all the cantor solos when you sing psalm verses. Here's the same monthly Manaean that is linked at the top of the liturgical calendar page. An old version of the Byzantine Catholic hymnal. We'll talk more about that later. Some akathists, molebens, the paraclesis, publications for feasts, and that generally means Christmas and then Theophany. So leaflet here for the blessing of homes. Then we have stuff for the Great Fast, and sometimes there are duplicates. For example, we have a 28-page booklet which is just for Vespers of Forgiveness on Chief's Fair Sunday. And then we have a larger book, 88 pages, that you can use on Sunday evening Vespers for all the Sundays of the Great Fast. So you take your pick. I mean, it all depends on which one you or your parish want to use. Lenten Matins, Hours and Typica, some molebens that are sort of Great Fastish things. And then we have Great and Holy Week. And I'm hoping to revise these over the next year and come up with versions from the seminary press. Up through Great and Holy Saturday, the Midnight Office of Pascha, all the Paschal services. And again, these are booklets. These are generally complete services rather than just, the propers. And then just a statement that says these can be downloaded. You can use for personal use, parish use. If you sell them, then you need to request permission from the archdiocese, and we would rather you not make changes to them without letting us know, but that's where they are. So the publications page. Any questions so far?
Now I realize, Father Deacon, where Father Stephen Galushik got all the booklets that he was printing up.
It can happen.
Yeah, I mean, The only thing that we have the whole set of Manayan, but you can't do it for March and April necessarily because Easter is somewhere in there and it
Yeah.
up
Well,
for,
and Lent. I mean, so many things
yeah,
get over, and that's
right,
why those volumes are actually a simpler than the others.
right.
Okay, so moving on from the bar at the top, we
Oh,
have,
could I interject one
of
question?
course, yes.
For the contributed materials for special readings, I was wondering, are you aware of any reverse indexes of the EOT epistles? And
A reverse index. What do you
I
mean?
want Corinthians 1 through 32. Show me what page it's on.
Ah, um, not exactly, but that's a good idea. If you drop me a note, I'll put it on the to-do list.
I was wondering if anybody had contributed that I didn't
No,
find
nothing
somewhere,
like
but
that. And it doesn't help that we have two different versions right now of the
oh,
epistle book with
that's
different
true.
paginations. So, but
Okay.
we'll get back to the lectionary later.
There are
So,
epistles that have that.
yeah. And and we could do that for ours. Like I said, we need to do at least two versions. In fact, if you look at the Slavonic epistle book, it's actually organized as like the entire Acts and letters, and then there are little footnotes that mark, here's the beginning of Wednesday in the 22nd week after Pentecost or something like that. But that's not the way we have it in English. Okay. Recordings. On this page, we have recorded music from a variety of places. Most of it, this is intentionally instructional. Um, but we have the entire 7 CD set that came out with the Divine Liturgies book.
Right.
All of these as as MP3s that are indexed so that you can easily find all of them in order. So Chrysostom, Basil, the Vigil, Divine Liturgy, the 8 tones for Sunday, movable feasts, immovable feasts. Um, as someone was just pointing out to me today, there is one section of the Green Book that we don't have recordings for. The hymns for the days of the week and the common hymns for the different classes of saints simply weren't recorded. It wasn't considered to be valuable enough. I kind of wish they'd done the Divine Liturgy for the departed, but we have here the Panikhida, the Moleben, and the couple and the hymns at the back of the book all recorded. So that's the Divine Liturgy. Then for the pre-sanctified, um, we have some recordings that were made by the Skull Cantorum of St. Peter in Chicago. Um, and in addition to, because we don't have those on CD, we also make them available as a zip file. So if you're taking the pre-sanctified course, or you want to review, um, the Sticura for Thursday and the fifth week of the fast, all of those recordings are there. And then we have we have music from Sunday Vespers and Matins. There are little changes. These were done, 2006 or so, and as little changes accumulate, these recordings may be a little less accurate, but they're pretty good for what they need, including things that are harder to sing, like the uh, Sunday gradual hymns, the Irmosi, um, and then we have a couple of CDs, again done by Professor Thompson Scola for the Feast of the Annunciation. Oh, that's misspelled. I need to fix that. Um, Vespers of Theodore Romsha. So if you wanted to listen to an entire Vespers service, you could, what it would sound like from beginning to end, you can do that. Vespers for St. Nicholas. We have a recording of the entire service of the Great Canon of Repentance, another one of Resurrection Matins, the Paraclesis, which is on sale from the Sisters of St. Basil, and a little section of special melodies, the Podobni. So all that's in English. And then below that, when the church in Slovakia came out of the catacombs briefly from under communism between 1968 and 1970, the Eparchy of Prešov published some books and did a series of LP albums of Prostopinia, and we had those digitized. And so here you have a fair bit of the divine liturgies and vespers and other things all in Slavonic, done by the cantor who was actually later a priest and the chant teacher at the seminary in Prešov.
Wow.
So while, I mean, particularly in Europe, the melodies sometimes change from place to place. You know, if you want to hear an authentic version of, say, Drava, you know, or some other special melody, or, you know, Easter music, you can listen to it here. And we do sometimes use that as a reference when teaching. So that was, as I said, that's a 4 LP set front and back, and we have everything indexed off of that. Someday it will be nice to have recordings just for listening purposes and choral music and such, but it's a fair chunk of stuff, so that's what we have right now. 2 more things on the top bar. We have a resources page, and that was sort of all the stuff that didn't have a place to put somewhere else when we started this. An index of live liturgical services, the Byzantine leaflet series. I did not get permission to digitize those myself. However, when the Archeparchy puts them online, I've gradually been adding in links to the ones they've put online. Pointers to educational programs, mailing lists. I don't know if the Eparchy of Parma still has their app. I need to go back and check these, but just kind of useful things. Church websites, websites with collections of chant, some general music theory stuff, and then some web pages about all sorts of different kind of Eastern chant. You know, Georgian chant, Serbian, Syrian chant, and so on, and some general websites with stuff about liturgical theology. The prologue from Ohrid is a classic 4-volume Lives of the Saints for Orthodox. Some ethnic stuff, church fathers, various sorts of things. So as I said, you know, if you see something in there that's broken, let me know. If you see something that'd like to be added. And then to conclude the top bar, this is how to get a hold of me. Or if you have any questions about the program or anything like that, this is where you find it. Hey, Steve.
Going back to the resources, I just checked the Parma Byzantine app. It says no longer active.
Okay, I need to go through a number of these are dead, and there's some new ones I should
Yeah.
probably add. So yeah, we'll go back and do that.
I had it on my phone. I hadn't looked at it for a while, so then let me check it. And sure enough, it's inactive.
Yep. So before we go to the left side, let's look at 2 more things before we go to the lots of stuff on the left.
One more, one question for you. For the recordings, for the Earmoy, are any of them using the Samo Podoben melodies, or are they all just a simple melody? Because recordings with the Samo Podoben ones would be nice.
Well, I mean, both are recorded for everything in the Green Divine Liturgies book. The I mean, the whole practice of singing them to tone 6 is fairly new. And so except for the stuff in the Divine Liturgies, everything should be the original melodies. So the Samapodobans rather than tone 6.
Cool, thanks.
Okay, so let's look at actually well, if I didn't have this magnified at about 180%, the stuff that would be occupying the middle of the page is news and just various stuff going on to check out once in a while. It does have some information here about how to get on the Cantor's mailing list if you aren't already. Requests that we've made for, you know, providing us with historical information and mission statement, kind of, you know, basic good stuff. On the right-hand side, which I'll do next because there's less than on the left, the very top, there's a link to the MCI online program. Talk about that another time. A link to the Theta Music Trainer app. If you want to do some ear training or vocal training there, and a link to information on where to sign up for it. The permissions that were written by the bishop saying they're approved for provisional use but are otherwise unofficial. So just because you find that on the website does not entitle you to go to your priest or bishop and say, this is the way it must be. You know, unless the bishops say it must be that way, then it doesn't have to be. After that, a short calendar of upcoming events. So for example, by mid-year, I usually put in, you know, a link for the Uniontown pilgrimage. If you have something that you'd like to be listed here of general interest cantors, that's great. And then, as I said, the liturgical calendar link at the top is the entire year. Here is the calendar for the coming month. And usually I update this about the middle of the month, so I'm a few days late. Shortly, I'm going to be removing uh, up through oh, I don't know, probably remove January 30th and add all of March to this box. And this is the same stuff that's in the liturgical calendar, but just abstracted so you can get the very current stuff. Here you go to the whole year calendar. And then also because we have been asked to do propers for the Vigil Divine Liturgy for most major feasts, because some parishes do choose to hold the feast day liturgy the night before when people can make it. And so these aren't on the regular liturgical calendar, but for each major feast, I make up a leaflet that has just a short version of Vespers with Divine Liturgy. So there's the Vesper propers and the readings and the Divine Liturgy propers all in one. Those are in the Cantor music mailing list once a month and in this spot and nowhere else on the website. But having said that, let's look at the left-hand side. About this site. So just kind of how to find your way and what's really the same stuff that I'm giving you, explaining what breadcrumbs are at the top of the page. We'll look at those later. How to use the sheet music, how to deal with PDFs and print off booklets, how to use the recordings, a few abbreviations that we use. We ended up not using the abbreviations as much as we thought we would. And the reason I say you can only find it in one place is to give a lie to that. Here is a link to all of the sheet music on the website, both the stuff for particular years and the stuff that's independent of the year. So if you want to find all of the stuff, so for example, Bridegroom Matins, or the Emmanuel Moleben, or GF1, Great Fast 1, first Saturday in the Great Fast, St. Theodore. Then you've got all this stuff here. So you can literally see pretty much all of the music propers in these folders, plus some other stuff. And there is, although there's not much in it, a frequently asked questions list. Right now, I think there's just one question, which is, how do I know which is official? If people ask questions, then maybe we'll add to this. Who knows? Okay. So the left-hand side is navigation. It is roughly in alphabetical order by major topic. So we have a section nice and prominent on the Cantor Institute explaining who we are and about the program. This is kind of more general than the classes button at the top. This just says, you know, here's all the stuff we do. And have an article explaining what a cantor is and what their job is. And if you haven't watched this video by Father Robert Carl, please do sometime. It's the best 10-minute introduction to the vocation of a cantor that I know of. We talk about becoming a cantor, how to improve your skills, a little bit about our online classes, and also, in some cases, we gave classes over the years in person and recorded them. And so if you want to hear or see the recordings of classes we've done before, or look at the handouts, some of these are things that didn't exactly go into the MCI online class, but you might find interesting. So for example, we have one on singing in Church Slavonic. We have some stuff on chant harmonization, and we actually have a recorded cantors retreat that we did, oh gosh, 12 years ago now. So stuff that's archived. Now we get into the meat and potatoes of the liturgy side. These are all explanatory articles that we also use for the MCI website, MCI classes. So everything in here is basically the contents of the Introduction to Liturgy class. So we talk about the daily cycle of services. And if you click on the links, then you go to the article about matins and you'll find out more about matins and you'll see it all laid out for you, what's in it, and that sort of thing. We do that for each of the major services. We give a kind of a diagram showing what there are and how they're used. The cycle of 8 tones, the liturgical year, which once again, when you get down into it, has links to various things. There's actually an article on the website about every month of the year and what's in it according to the Byzantine Rite. So about the sacraments or holy mysteries, the occasional services, all of this is the high level stuff, and then you can drill down and find more. Now, Menaion can mean several things. I said it's a liturgical book, yes, and we have for the MCI a book just for the Divine Liturgy for each month. What we don't have is all the stuff with Vespers and Matins. If you look behind me, actually, this shelf here is a Slavonic Menaion, and they're not small books, and it's thin paper. But what we do have is, because the MCI has over the years done music for Saturday evenings almost all the time, we now have text, proper texts for Vespers and the Divine Liturgy on almost every day of the year. So say you're looking at September 7th, I want to do something on the evening on September 7th, what I do. If you click on this date, you'll find out about the saint of the day. You'll see the texts written out for Vespers with asterisks breaking up into phrases. If you click on the link, you can find a set of sheet music from some previous year that has the music for the feast, both regular and Samalasan. And you scroll down and you have all the stuff for the Divine Liturgy for that particular day. So on this one page, we have everything starting in September and ending in August. And if you want to get to a particular month, say, I don't want to scroll all the way down to February, just click on February at the top and you go right there. Someday, we're going to finish this with matins and compile this all and put it in PDFs and make it available to people. But for now, if you need it, this is where you get it.
Wow.
Okay. And again, a lot of this is just leveraging stuff that we already had been doing. And somebody said, wouldn't it be cool if? So if you have a cool idea, let me know. Maybe offer to help, see what we can do.
Yeah.
Next thing, we have an Introduction to Liturgy class. We also have Introduction to Church Singing. And the Introduction to Church Singing does 2 things. It talks about what is a cantor and how do you become one. And also it talks about the basics of musicianship. So, what musical skills does a cantor need and how do I get these skills? And we have articles about basics of sound and pitch and rhythm and how you go about singing, what musical intervals are, what musical scales are, because a lot of people, you kind of know do, re, mi, but what is this all? How does this all really work? And we have scales with recorded examples. So if you didn't have a whole lot of music education, or sometimes even if you did, because one of the things we find is when people with a lot of musical training who didn't grow up in our church want to become cantors, sometimes they have to unlearn a few things. And so we cover that in the musicianship class. We talk about the basics of musical notation and how to read music. All of this is covered in the Intro to Church Singing course, but it's also on the website. And finally, we have a complete 9-part vocal course with recorded lectures to teach you the basics of how to sing. We encourage people to get have a voice teacher, at least get some instruction. But if you want, you can find out what does resonance sound like in your voice and how do you get it. So musicianship. Now, once you've got liturgy down and know your way around, and once you know a little bit about musicianship, we start talking about our plain chant prostopinia. We talk a little bit about how it's written and how it showed up in books and what the rhythm is like and what the melodies are like. Now, the history page is a work in progress, and that is not done. But the melodies page, I will say anybody who attends our church regularly, we did a count once at the Divine Liturgy and Vespers, ends up learning about 95 melodies, not counting any special stuff. And so here we talk about what all of those melodies are, and we talk about the response melodies and the melodies for litanies and the different hymns, psalm tones, melodies for readings, melodies the clergy use, Triparia, Cantacia. And then here's a chart of the 8 Triparian melodies. Just the beginning, because it would take a lot of space. And also, what you should be able, once you hear the beginning of tone 1 Troparian, you should be able to sing the rest of the Troparian. I mean, if you're following somebody else, if you're the cantor and need to lead it, then you need to be able to generate out of your head and voice those first 3 or 4 notes to get yourself and everybody else started. So we have here tone 1, how it starts, how it repeats, the words of the Sunday Troparian in that tone to help you get started. We have a link to an article that tells you all about this melody and how it works. And for each of these, we have a page of examples. How did we get these? Well, we pulled out every tone 1 Troparian in the Green Book and put them kind of in order, sometimes in order of complexity. So if you want to really practice tone 1, you go to this page, and every one of these has a recording. So you can listen to it. Well, you can link to, here's the page in the Green Book. You can see what it looks like in the Green Book. You can listen to a recording, and you can just practice. We have that for all of the Troparian melodies. We have some of it for the Podoban melodies. We have another page for Cantacia, the same sort of thing. The Stikira melodies, melodies for canons. Stikira is, again, here's the 8 Samalasan tones. Here's the whole verse melody. And then here's the start. You have to scroll right, which I can't do. Oh, I guess I can pull from under it. So there's the way the Stikiron, how it repeats. And again, if you want to see examples with recordings of tone 1 Samalasan, here's where you find the stuff. And usually we have the Sunday Sikira, and we also have a link to the Lord's Prayer in that tone so you can practice it all in one place. Talk a little bit about it. And that's melodies. Again, harmonies. Harmonization is a work in progress. We're still figuring out how to explain it to people. We do talk about prostopinia rhythm and the fact that some things have a steady beat, the minority, and some are the rhythm of text. And we talk all about what that is like. And performance issues. How do you get the right chant sound? And we talk about some guidance to do that. And that's prostopinia. There are a few other articles that are you have to drill down further and things that we link. All of these are linked from the online courses. So I'll stop there. Any questions? We're mostly done. It's a few more interesting things, a few more hidden gems. Our church, in addition to plain chant, has always incorporated some choral music, some parishes more than others. So we talk about that. Have a link to something that Father Andrew Summerson did about it. And we have a page of all of our choirs, of which I am aware, some of which are no longer around. And I would love, with your help, to fill it out, which is why I have a link to how you can contribute stuff about your choir, or maybe a choir you were once in. And so I would love to fill in, dates that were active, choirs that had recordings, maybe you could even make them available, that sort of thing.
Father
Little bit,
Deacon,
yes.
would you just give a brief kind of definition of a choir as opposed to a group of cantors who are singing?
In general, what we're talking about here is organized groups under a director who are singing, generally speaking, composed music. Now, there are very few parish choirs that I'm aware of that only sang plain chant and without harmonization, just the notes in the book. And generally, that's indistinguishable from just having experienced singers in the congregation. But mostly we're looking at groups that had an identity of their own that attempted to raise the level of singing in the parish and very often did recordings or otherwise, spread their fame, as it were. Um, so I mean that's how I define it for purposes of this.
Okay. Thanks, that's helpful.
Okay. Um, let's see. And then some choral resources, and we're planning on filling some of those in. I have to remember to show you something at the end. Okay, moving along. Choral music is slightly out of order. I said this is an alphabetical Manean musicianship, prosopenia. Choral music just felt it fit in there right after prosopenia. Um, Readings. Well, the reader is a little bit different job from the cantor historically and practically. So we talk here about like what we don't just sing and pray in church. We also read things. We talk about what we read and how it's done and how you can become a reader. And then we have here a table showing all of the readings in the course of the year, according to the Byzantine lectionary. The number of the lection, we don't use those much, but in older books you'll often find them. Every one of those readings is actually numbered, assigned a number. So you can find out, for example, most of this is organized for the Divine Liturgy. The first column is the epistle, the second is the gospel. But then where something like a special Vesper service comes in, we'll insert it. Mentions the resurrectional gospels at Matins. If you go down, see, this is all according to the Easter cycle, so the weeks after Pentecost. It starts with Easter. Go through the weeks after Pentecost. Then we get into the period of Lent. So here we have all of the Lenten Triodian readings. So the readings for Vespers of the Presanctified, for every day of Lent. And then after that, we have the feast day readings for the major feasts and Christmas and Theophany and that sort of thing. It's all in one place. What this does mean, though, is that you can actually search this. And I probably should move this number, swap the number and the citation. It wasn't the way I thought to do it originally, but if you want to look for, say, Galatians 3, it would be easier if the 205 rule was in parentheses. But this does mean that if you're looking for, if you know that a reading is, chapter 3, verse 8 of Galatians, then you can find where in the course of the year it is. It's not quite what Greg was asking about, but it can be useful sometimes. I know we use this reading in the liturgy somewhere. Where is it? And then you can often look it up in the epistle book. So that's the lectionary. We've thought about having a pronunciation guide for hard words in scripture. We don't yet. Would be nice eventually. And then setting the services, by which we mean choosing or identifying what we're going to sing and pray and so on. In other words, using the Typicon. So we start here. A lot of this is covered in the introduction of the Typicon course. We have articles about the Typicon. We have articles about how to set up the Divine Liturgy on a weekday or Sunday. All of that's under setting the services. Then we have singing the services. And if you look at the navigation, you might think, oh, well, this is just about really basic stuff like getting ready. Well, yeah, it does. We talk about preparing for services, like deciding who's in charge and different ways leadership can work and how to warm up and just kind of general advice. Then we talk a little bit more detailed about things that cantors need to know about leading the chant. All of that is, again, easily identifiable in the navigation bar. And pitch matching. Whether you're singing in a group or you're trying to match with the clergy, we talk a little bit about how you do that, how to use Theta Music Trainer to up your game if you need to, and in particular, what to do if your clergy sing very high or very low, which is a perennial issue. So here we
Even both.
identify some tricks that you can use to sing with the clergy in a way that makes them sound good and makes you sound good and avoids everyone like being in tears at the end of the liturgy and not in a good way. Um, so, and I'm not going to say anything about this, but this can happen too. So, we try to deal with all of those things. We talk about, for example, the reader matching pitch, and you can use this if you have reader in your parish who needs to learn how to match the verses of the Perkimenon to the Perkimenon verse if the reader does it. And we actually have a page here that lets the reader see graphically where the verse melody matches up with the Perkimenon melody. So we try to kind of link those where they're appropriate. So like I said, you could do that, read those articles, and never realize that there is much, much more under singing the services. Because if you click on, sometimes people, some people just skip the introduction to a book they want to read, or ignore the title heading. Well, in this case, it's important. If you click on singing the services, this is the index. This says, how do I sing Vespers in grim detail? And this will be linked from the Vespers class. How do I sing the Divine Liturgy? All of the details of what works and what we normally do and what our traditions are. How to sing the hours, how to sing Typica, including if it's used for Holy Communion, how to sing the Christmas services and the Lenten services. It doesn't cover every single one. It covers a lot of them, though. How to sing a baptism, how to sing a wedding, hierarchical divine liturgies, how to sing the funeral services, Moleben and Akathist. All of these you get to, because I could have put this entire stuff in the left-hand navigation bar, but it just would have taken up a lot of space. So just know, click on singing the services, you can find everything. In addition to chant and choral music, we also sing stuff. Like all of the hymns to the Mother of God and the hymns for Christmas. I talk about this a little bit in general here, but then a few years later, we did a massive project to try to create a hymnal, and all of that is noted here. So for example, here we have the hymns to God, starting with Hosts of Angels on High, a link to the English version with notes, a link to the Slavonic version, again, with comments like where it came from and where to find it. I've got links to, here's one, link to page 87 of Andrew Sokol's Plain Chant. We actually have the Sokol Plain Chant book, the whole thing online. And if you go to it, about this book, I need to fix that. Well, what can I say? We actually have, and we have the Duchovny Pisny of Stefan Pop. Um, we tell you if Father Lev Kulik did one in the Old Divine Liturgies book. So all of that kind of information is there. We also note on the right if there's stuff that we're still doing with it. Some of them we actually had spirited discussions over on the blog about the way it is sung or the way it should be sung and what to do about that and that kind of thing. So if you're interested in a hymn that we sing outside the liturgy, that's the button that you want to push to go in and look. And if you've got contributions or something that you'd like to see added, that's great. Last things, tools for learning. Right now, I need to write an article about using Moodle. I need to write an article about recording your voice. Although adding the plugins that we did to Moodle made that easier. And here's an article about the Theta Music Trainer app. People who sign up for our class or for the program get a free membership to use a fairly extensive music training application called Theta Music Trainer. It has games to help you learn pitch matching or even music reading or reading rhythms. A lot of this stuff doesn't directly apply to cantors. It's more for, like junior high music students. But if you want to, you can go ahead and try it out. If you don't pay for it, you can only do a few levels, but if you sign up for MCI classes and get us included in your account class, then you get access to everything. Much, much more than we use.
And I'd like to throw in a plug for it. It's a great app, very helpful for basic musicianship.
Good. Yep. Um, anything else? I'm not sure if the website person running the website made this available yet. It works. Okay. Now we don't point you exactly to this up here, but if right after mci.archpit.org, you add the word books, we have here, let's see, the book Shai Prostopenia, complete with a PDF. I wrote a really simple kind of page turning JavaScript app where, let's say I want to go to page 37. You can put in 37 here. You can look at the index at the beginning, that sort of thing. So there's the book Shai Prostopenia. Let me out. There we go. Guess this is.
So now, quick question while you're doing that. So this is only if you do the search with the word books on it. There's no link within the MCI site to this
Well,
directory.
we link to a lot of particular things. There isn't a link to this directory as such.
Okay.
The problem is if I just put it up there, a lot of people will get to this and just get lost and have no idea what they're seeing. It's kind of like the sheet. I mean, I guess I could call it the book archive or something like that. And maybe, back here, and maybe I should put like a book, chant book archive.
Because that would make it a little easier to find it rather than
Yeah.
having to do with Google's. Because I've used references from that one in some of my classes, but I've had to do the Google search to get to it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean the links should they're in the classes, the links should work.
No, I'm saying when I'm wanting to print out stuff,
Oh, yeah.
chant
Yeah.
passages I'm doing
All right.
to print out material to show to people, because not everybody has a copy of Bookshire Prostopenia, and I have one copy to show them of the original, but I want to make copies of it. And since there's already scanned pages, this is a nice resource for that.
Okay. Well, yeah, let me go ahead and add a chant book archive line right there. It won't push the other stuff too
Right.
far down. That would be worth doing. I can do that.
Right, but it needs to make it separate, so it's not part of the general
Oh, yeah.
archive.
Yeah. Okay. So what else is here? DL, Divine Liturgy, that is the green book. And again, you can page through it online and you can record this link and stick it into a document if you wanted to show somebody a page of the Divine Liturgies book. There's
Right.
also a PDF. The MCI Sunday Matins books, the Pop Earmologian is here, which is a good resource. And for some people who don't read Cyrillic, this is very helpful because it's in Latin letters. The Pop Hymnal of paraliturgical songs, the Sokol Plain Chant book, which is the Divine Liturgy, the Sokol Basic book, which is Basic Chant book, which is the eight tones and
The eight tones,
Vespers.
Camouflage, and some of the matins.
Yep, and Vespers and Matin stuff is in there too. So this is,
Okay.
I think also, think Easter's in the other. So a little history of our chant and some other stuff in there. And finally, the thing that I skipped over, BLC 1970. The first English versions of our chant that were officially published were in about 65 from Pittsburgh and Parma. And then in 1970, there was a black ring notebook called Byzantine Liturgical Chant. And we have that here. Yep, that's the one. Thank you, Steve. We have all of the pages of that. This is kind of the music that went with the old Divine Liturgies book. Now, it's not complete. They meant to include Easter and the spring feasts, and they never did, for example. And some of it is very, very simplified, and some of it's a little idiosyncratic. But if you're looking for historical music, that's one place to find it. And with that, how far back do we go to the home page? Well, if I want to, I can always click on home and will take me back to the home page. Clicking on Archeparchy of Pittsburgh takes me to the Archeparchy website. Anything else? Let's see. On the resources page, I did mention that we have links to the seminary. If you go to the seminary and then go to the library page, I think we can find it here. Special collections. This is something that I have been working on with Steve Paluca. We have here some archival material of Prostopinea. Is it going to load? Yep. Have a variety of things here, and gradually we're putting all of these things like the Hungarian bookshai and other things online. And also,
What was this link again?
okay, this is if you go to the St. Cyril and Methodius Seminary Campus Life Library, and then special collections. And I'll probably add this. This is fairly recent. I should probably add this to the resources page as well.
Okay, because I was saying just finding it is not really straightforward there.
Yep. The other thing that is probably worth knowing that I talked about cantors and choir directors. We have here the complete index to all the papers contributed to the seminary by John Lessler of Endicott, New York, who was a student of Ratzin, and Andrew Petrin of Whiting. So, for example, if you look at this is all the music kept by a choir director who served in a parish for about 50 years, all through the change from Slavonic. So you'll see all the different composers that he had music by and all the different sorts of things that were in use. And if you just want to kind of see what kind of music has been used in our parishes, these are invaluable kind of things just to walk through and say, oh yeah, we used music by Kostalski or, Krichaninoff. So yeah, I need to add that to the resources page. I'm making a list here of things I need to do when this is all over. But so now you've seen the MCI website. You've seen some, hidden things you might not have otherwise. And for example, how to print off booklets of music once you find the music that you want, that kind of thing. So any other questions?
Oh, thank you, Father Deacon, for simplifying what looks scary when you first look at
There's a
the stuff.
lot. There's a lot on the website.
Well, and it's something I learned that when I was at US Steel, would you believe, and we were working with the first computer, and the guy was teaching us how to use it. And he says, well, don't worry. If you make a mistake, you just go back to square one and start all over again. And it's neat that you can, you can just touch something and have it come up and say, no, that's not what I want. When I first was looking at stuff for Vespers, before Father printed up the Vespers book from the MCI site, you get a big pile of like everything you could possibly want to know.
It's a lot.
You can pick what you want.
Yeah. Before I stop the recording and go to discussion, is there anything that people wanted to ask? Okay.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to use it.